John here with you. It is Sunday, September 5th, 2021. How is everybody doing out there today? We got a loaded show here for you today, and I want to try to get through all of this without a script. Before we get everything started, I just want to let you know that the Demon's Souls review for PS5, yes, I finally finished Demon's Souls on the PS5. That's being uploaded as we speak, so expect that later today. And Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, I was able to get that, a used copy at GameStop. So I will get the review and play and let you know how that is sometime next week. I will be buying some new games, so they will be getting my money, as they always do. Maybe it'll be Scarlet Nexus or Tales of the Arise or anything like that, or unless that's for Christmas time. But I'll let you know how all that stuff is going. So a Demon's Souls review is on the way, and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart sometime next week. The one game that I had to buy off the PlayStation Store that I couldn't get a physical copy of at GameStop was Diablo 2 Resurrected. That's coming out toward the end of September. So, Demon's Souls review upcoming, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart next week, and then expect Diablo 2 Resurrected toward the end of the month, and I'll get you some progress on that. So as far as show topics that I want to get into, there's a lot to be said about the PlayStation 5 revision in the video that was posted by YouTube extraordinaire Austin Evans. And at first I want to get you caught up on the PS5 revision if you're unaware of it. So when the PlayStation 5 officially launched last November, about the second week of November, now we have a PS5 revision. Shortly, the reasoning for this is because the system on a chip have not been easy to acquire because of the pandemic and all of that, and some changes were needed to be made. And because some changes were needed to be made, some people are saying that the PS5 revision is not as good as the initial OG PS5. No, there isn't any different specs under the hood or anything like that, but what is different is the heatsink and the cooling aspect inside the PS5. And if you weren't aware of this, Sony did let you know last year sometime when the PS5 released, when you were playing the console and you were playing some of these games, some of your data would be used to determine how these PS5s were running, if they were effectively running cool or if they were running hot. What's different between the Xbox Series consoles and the PlayStation 5, and quite frankly where the Xbox Series is probably better than the PS5, and this is coming from someone that has played PlayStation since PS1, I'm just being honest here with you, the Xbox Series always runs at its full frequency rather than the PS5 that runs at variable frequencies. So depending on the type of game that you play, the PS5 CPU, GPU, all that stuff can decide whether or not how much power needs to be used rather than running at 100% all the time. And with this PS5 revision now, people are wondering because the system is effectively running hotter, about 5 or 6 degrees hotter than the initial PS5, whether or not the console is going to have any kind of long-term effects. And simply right now, as we know, at September 5th, 2021, on a Sunday, the day before Labor Day, we don't know right now what the long-term effects of this PS5 revision will be. And Austin Evans in his video had mentioned he has some concerns whether or not some people have adequate cooling, whether or not they throw them in their studios and things like that, maybe where the fan can't dissipate all the heat and things like that. He wondered if some of those users will be having some long-term effects and ramifications down the road, which I thought was an open-ended thing to think about, and said, yes, I honestly agree with him. I feel like that could have some concerns down the road. And granted, we know, between a year time, maybe Sony and all of those guys had put together enough information from all of the stuff from everyone that had PS5s to determine that this might be the best course of action for them to do. You also need to know in the back of your mind that this course of action was considered, again, because of the lack of the system on a chip and the fact that if they take out some of that heatsink and some of that cooling, it will allow them to mass produce more of these PS5s to be able to get them on store shelves during Christmas and the holiday season and things like that. But as it is, the console does run hotter than the initial PS5. And yes, you will need to make sure, like I have mine sitting on top of a couple of books from college books, because that's what they're all used for anymore, and then have adequate cooling of it pushed out. So that way it's able to get what it needs to get. But if it runs hotter, and some of you guys don't have all that stuff, it could be a little bit of an issue. And look, when Austin Evans opened up some of this stuff in his video, and you can check some of that stuff on YouTube, because his video title says the secondary PS5 is worse. And you'll see Austin Evans' glorious face and all that. He does some wonderful videos and all that, so anyone that hasn't followed him should be following him on YouTube. But he pretty much opened up the guts with the PS5 with another user, and they determined that there's a hell of a lot less copper and aluminum and all that stuff inside the PS5 in the revision. And again, maybe it was because, and we all know this, if you owned a PlayStation 3, if you owned a PS4, if you owned a PS4 Pro, it sounded like the console was taking off on a jet engine on a plane destined to nowhere, even when you're just running menus and things like that. The consoles always ran hot. Even in the 360 days with the red ring of death, the PS3 always had the orange light of death. And the PS4 always sounded like a jet engine. So with the PS5, it was nice to know from the OG side that there was going to be more adequate cooling and the thing was going to be a lot quieter. And stuff was just going to make a hell of a lot more sense because that's how it should be. So maybe granted, in the initial PS5s, there was a lot more copper and aluminum and base like that for heatsink to make sure that things ran cooler, but it made a lot more sense for it to do so. So this revision, in Austin Evans' respect, is worse, and quite honestly, I agree with him. Whether or not, again, we know about the long-term ramifications and whether or not it's going to make things worse down the road, we don't know. But at the same time, when you think about the CS Boss batteries and things like that, when they die in the PS3, when they die in the PS4, things can't sync up online, they can't sync up in the PlayStation Store, and the console is rendered useless. No, that doesn't happen on the Xbox side of things, but it happens on the PS3, PS4, and PS5 side of things. So the fact that you have some adequate cooling, you know, that kind of helps you feel a little bit better, but you're still dealing with the CS Boss batteries. But again, that is one man's opinion in Austin Evans. And honestly, I can't say that the man's wrong. I definitely do feel like the revision is a little worse. And yes, honestly, even though you might only pay $5 or $10 more for the initial PS5, if you ever saw that pricing on eBay or Amazon and things like that, it's not worth what the scalpers are doing. And it sucks that the scalpers take advantage of the guy's video because he had a lot of knowledge of things to share. And now instead of the PS5 costing like $900 on StockX, it's costing like $1,200 because scalpers say it's the cooler one and you need to buy the initial one. So again, we don't know what's going on with the revision as far as long-term ramifications, but just know that if you get the revision and you feel it in your hands, it does run considerably cooler. It does run considerably cooler on the initial and hotter in the revision. And when you open up the revision, you will have space for your fingers in there where the heatsink should have been. So that really isn't feeling too good, but that's where we're at right now. And as far as his video and thoughts on that and all of that, honestly, I'm happy he made a video like that so I can know more about it. But I was ashamed that he had to make a follow-up video to say it was just a console and not to get too heated over it. Pun intended. But honestly, it's pretty sad that all these fanboys are going out there attacking him and saying, well, that's not true, and that doesn't matter. Who cares if it runs hotter? You suck. Fuck you. I'm going to dox you. Like, you got to dox the guy and send death threats and all that stuff because he's relaying some information to you? Grow up, guys. You know, at the end of the day, it's a fucking video game console. Grow up, get a life, go outside and do something. This is speaking from someone that has cerebral palsy that spends a lot of their time gaming and things like that. I still exercise a lot and I go outside a lot and do some other things. You guys need to grow up and find a hobby and another day job and do something else rather than attacking the guy for giving his opinion and giving you some information that could be of use to you down the road. So just be mindful of these are the revisions that you will see during Christmas time. And also in the revision, hopefully the stand can be undone a little bit more with the fingernail other than the screws. And also the stand will stick in more rather than just a clip-on because the stand is really fucking stupid on the OG PS5 and it needed to be changed. So as we talk a little bit more about the revision here, I want to make one more quick point. So the expansion bay slot for the PS5 has opened up, right? It's opened up within the last couple of months so you can get more storage and things like that. Sony originally had it closed because they needed to make sure that things were compatible enough on the market and see how it was going to be used to make sure everybody knew what they were doing. So it is recommended that you put a heatsink around your expansion bay SSD so that way it doesn't overheat. And now with the revision on the PS5, if you don't have a heatsink on your expansion bay SSD, I don't know what you're doing. Get it done. Put your heatsink around there, and if you do end up with the PS5 revision, don't fret. Things will be okay. I just want to let you know about that. I thank Austin Evans for making his video. And no, I personally don't care for all the people that were attacking him and doxing him and doing all these other things because it wasn't fucking funny. You guys need to grow up and get a life. So, PlayStation needs to be called out about their practices. And this is one of those guys like I did, especially when the PS5 pre-orders were going on and I made that video. There was a lot of stuff going on as far as all of that. And I couldn't get the greatest audio at the time. So, Horizon Zero Dawn. It was a huge game. And the sequel, Horizon Forbidden West, is on its way. And it's going to be announced. It's been announced. It's going to release sometime probably late 2021. If it doesn't get delayed or anything else like that. We'll see what happens as far as Christmas holiday and things like that, if it's going to be released by then. But Horizon Forbidden West is coming. But initially what the backlash was from the PlayStation side of things, and President Jim Ryan, Sony president, was saying that those that purchase Horizon Forbidden West on the PlayStation 4 can get the PS5 upgrade at no charge. A few days ago, PlayStation reneged on that and said that there is a massive paywall behind a collector's edition if you do want to get Horizon Forbidden West from PS4 to PS5. After that massive backlash, and thankfully fans and everyone else calling them out on their shitty practices, Sony has again went back to the initial statement saying that Horizon Forbidden West will be a free upgrade for PS4 players to PS5, which is thankful. And I don't know why they would do that stuff, but at the same time, we will know why, because EA does all that stuff as far as like Madden and NHL and FIFA and things like that. And it's only a matter of time before all game companies follow suit. But it is one thing of note throughout all of this stuff. And Jim Ryan said they dropped the ball, and yeah, and they only said that because everyone was fucking calling them out on it. So this is what's to be taken note of. He wants to confirm one thing. So this is quote from Jim Ryan. I also want to confirm today that moving forward, PlayStation first-party cross-gen titles, newly releasing on PS4 and PS5, both digital and physical, will offer a $10 USD digital upgrade option from PS4 to PS5. This will apply to the next God of War and Gran Turismo 7 and any other cross-gen PS4, PS5 title published by Sony Interactive Entertainment. So does that already mean that God of War and Gran Turismo 7 are going to be on PS4 and PS5? Because if you remember correctly, Jim Ryan was making fun of Microsoft and their cross-gen approach in terms of saying, next generation begins with us. Hey, it certainly doesn't seem like that on the PlayStation side, because they're making as many fucking cross-gen games as possible because they know that the PlayStation 4 has a large player base. But I digress, they don't want to miss out on that money. But note again, whether it be digital or physical, there will be a $10 charge going forward after Horizon Forbidden West for any cross-gen games if you want to upgrade from PS4 to PS5. So keep that in mind. So this is the last thing I want to talk about here, and this is going to be a little bit longer. My NHL 22 tech test beta thoughts. No, I can't give you any gameplay or anything else per usual, just like the NHL 21 tech test. But I can leave you my thoughts here, and I can talk about some of that stuff. If you played the tech test and you want to leave some comments, or you have any questions or concern, as always, get at me, facebook.com/TVWithGunslinger, Twitter @JohnRyanOck. So I want to talk about this here real quick. The NHL 22 beta, or the technical test. So I played this on the PlayStation 5. It was available to be downloaded on Monday. I want to make sure I get that date right. So Monday was the 30th of August, and it ended today, Sunday, September 5th, 2021. So when you downloaded it on the PlayStation 5, code name was Water Buffalo. I don't know why it was called Water Buffalo. I didn't know what the hell I was downloading, but I did get the code directly in from my inbox. I downloaded the game. I proceed to boot up for the technical test. As I talked about it in the NHL 22 opening news segment, there was supposed to be completely customizable builds in NHL 22. It turns out they are not completely customizable. The news that came out initially that it was completely customizable was false. Now it is a hybrid approach. Unlike, NHL 10 to 14 from the 360 and PS3 days that we remember fondly that was completely customizable, NHL 22 now has returned to a hybrid approach, meaning things are broken into 5 sections. Granted, I don't know what all of the names of them were off top hand, but I did play about 10 or 15 games, and I can't give you an adequate representation of what I think the game will be like. So it was broken into categories like this: offense, defense, tenacity, athleticism, and things like that. So let's say in those 5 categories, the first was your wrist shot accuracy, slap shot accuracy, speed, balance, and agility. The next section was your 2-shot powers and some other things. The third section was your defensive ratings, whether you're stick checking, your defensive awareness, your offensive awareness, some of the other stuff, and toward the end of it was your intangibles, your durability, your face-offs, and things like that. So why is this all important? What stayed the same in the NHL 22 beta and will probably continue doing forward was if you adjusted your height and weight, you would get different attributes as far as your speed, agility, endurance, and things like that. It would make your players slower if you put more weight on, but you would get more balance. You would have more strength and things like that. So that does remain the same. However, what is different in this hybrid approach is when you go to click on your initial stats, you notice that you can lower each section of your stats between a +5 to a -5 to anywhere in between. When you close out each section, you cannot end up with a negative amount of points. But you can if you want to close out with points left over. I don't know why you would want to do that, but if there's certain other things that are left that you couldn't cap anymore, couldn't get to, maybe you were left with like 10 or 20 extra points that you couldn't spend. But be that as it may, it's now a hybrid approach that can go from -5 to +5. So if you do, for instance, wanted to work on a wrist shot and take out your slap shot, you could do that. Slap shot -5, wrist shot +5, slap shot -5 power, +5 wrist shot power, mix and match, however it would be. You could end up doing that. What ended up really bothering me once I played the technical test was not the small glitches and things that you're going to go ahead and encounter. Because it is a technical test, I think those small little graphical overlay glitches and all that stuff can always be fixed with a patch. But what can't be fixed with patches is gameplay and just flat-out stupidity. So from NHL 21, as I talked about in the full review, what I hated about it last year was the automatic predication of the cross pass, and that being the only way that you can effectively score goals in that game. Yes, quite frankly, sometimes you can get lucky on a wrist shot, or you get traffic through a screen because screens still work, or maybe a couple deflections, but primarily, as you knew it, it was cross pass in NHL 21. I regret to inform you in NHL 22, as far as the technical test and probably the full game going forward, it's still going to be cross pass predicated, which completely sucks and completely kills the variety of goals that you can score in the game, but it remains to be the same on all of that stuff. Even with the +5 and minus stuff, +5 in tow, I can still see stuff in terms of, okay, my player doesn't feel that fast when I put the speed on there. Even when I have good defensive ratings, when I have good body checking, the body checking is still probably a little bit overpowered. His guys can fly everywhere, but the stick checking still completely sucks. And as someone that loves to play positional hockey and things like that, it doesn't seem like you can use the stick check to get a clean break and things like that. What also sucks, and I know a lot of players are going to play with this, and a lot of you guys that turn off the auto backskate and the auto hustle, as you should, because auto hustle was introduced in NHL 22. I don't know why. That was just one of those beginner things to try to supposedly help people. But with auto backskate, it sucks. You got to turn it off because obviously you can't turn. If you want to line yourself up, you want to hold the left trigger or the L2 button, respectively, to try to intercept passes and things like that. But now when you're introducing auto hustle, sometimes you get the automatic hustle for no reason, tiring your guy out, which doesn't make any sense. But at the same time, people that didn't even know about clicking in the left stick or L3 or things like that to normally hustle will just catch up to you because everything that's auto. And even when you use that stuff sparingly, as you're supposed to, it seems like even when you have a lot of speed, someone with not a lot of speed but has hustle in their back pocket will still catch up to you, and you won't be able to finish your breakaways. I found that to be really disheartening, because I'd be about 3 or 4 or 5 steps ahead and still get caught up, which doesn't make any fucking sense. So I really didn't like that aspect of it, because it was trying to cater a little bit more toward players that didn't really play the game all that well, or not knowing too much of it but still being rewarded, which kind of sucked. And then at the same time, again, with just the cross-pass stuff, that sucks. The one thing I will say, it's a double-edged sword here. The passing in the NHL 22 technical test, and probably NHL 22 as we go forward when it releases in the first week or second week of October, just 3 days after the NHL season starts, the passing in the NHL 22 tech test is absolutely fucking atrocious. Even passes that you should hit, passes that are wide open with no one else in front of them, don't seem to hit at all. They just can't hit. And if you do happen to just barely put too much power on it, even if someone has a hand-eye rating, like I said, you can do -5 or +5. You try to change some of that so your hand-eye can be predicated to be able to get more of these passes. If you happen to put just a little bit too much sauce on a pass, the pass will go flying, and it will go off the stick tape, and it will go for an icing. Even sometimes when you face up with the left trigger or L2 to try to get the vision control to face up and catch the pass. Your passing is horrible. And yet you see some of these guys, because passing is so bad, maybe that was one of those things that EA tried to do to diminish the effectiveness of the cross pass. And yes, I know cross pass is an effective way to score goals, but it shouldn't be the only way to score goals. But at the same time, from that tech test, it seems like everybody's trying to gun the pass in at 1,000 miles an hour to try to get those anyway, because they still feel like that's the only fucking way to score in the game. So, effectively, if you can deke and do some of the other Mortal Kombat style deke moves, like the Datsuks and things like that require the same hellish combinations as they've done before, you can effectively score some pretty goals, but at the same time, the computer and the goalie doesn't react that well to them. So even if it's something that shouldn't go in, if you can effectively pull out a combination with a little bit of space near the goalie, it's probably going in, which sucks. So if you're looking to try to cycle or shoot a slap shot or do some of the other stuff, you can't effectively cycle, because I regret to inform you that the computer AI is just as bad as they were in NHL 21, and they haven't gotten better at all. I can't say they've gotten worse, but they certainly are the same as they were within the previous iterations of that game from 19, 20, 21, and 22 and things like that. It hasn't gotten much better. So, to be honest with you, with the X Factor abilities that are now in the game, you can get like zone abilities to be able to shoot from farther, or steal more passes, or try to get more tape-to-tape passes. It's all one of those things like Call of Duty where you can try to customize it a little bit to give yourself a little bit of an edge. But at the same time, as I mentioned, with all the player builds sucking garbage, it doesn't seem like those zone abilities and everything else do too much. It seems like it's just something that EA copied from Madden and tried to tout it as a new feature, which it really isn't. And quite honestly, it doesn't make a bit of a fucking difference in terms of what you're trying to do. I don't particularly care for the zone abilities all that much, and I don't feel like they do much to differentiate from each of the star players. It really isn't a game that's all much different from last year's offering, even running from the Frostbite engine and things like that, or on the new console. Granted, as I mentioned before in the previous video, from Madden, FIFA, the Frostbite engine, and Battlefield, all of that, it's about 4 years old. And granted, the Frostbite engine that was supposed to be running Mass Effect 5 has completely been scrapped, I've heard, and they're starting that game all over. But the Frostbite engine does little in terms of figuring out looking how good NHL 22 would look on PS4, PS5, or some of those other things. Yeah, it's marginal lighting changes. Yeah, it's marginal improvements in the face like that, but it's nothing to write home about. It's something that does look a little bit better in the replays and all that, but when you're playing a sports game, it's all about gameplay and replayability and things like that. Is it fair? Is it balanced? Is it fun? All of those things? It's really not. And in terms of all of that, with the technical tests and all of that, I regret to inform you that NHL 22 doesn't look to be a day one buy. especially now when you're talking about that X Factor edition between PS4 and PS5, or the Xbox One of the series consoles, that it's locked behind a $100 paywall, or if you're paying just the next-gen price, that it would be $75. This tech test has done little to impress me to think about that it's even better than last year's offering. And NHL 21 was garbage. The NHL 22 is not much better at all. In some areas, honestly, I feel like it's worse. And that's not a ringing endorsement for the game. But what did you think about it? Facebook.com/GBEventsinger, Twitter @JohnRyanOtt. In that tech test, all we had access to was World of Chell, so I did play about 10 drop-in games. I played about 5 club games with a person that I met from Quebec. We were able to play a few games there, and it seemed okay. And I played with Mike there a little bit for a few games, and it seemed okay when you're able to get a little more controlled. It didn't feel much different from 21, but the drop-in, as you always know, is a fucking cesspool. And the X Factors, don't do much and all of that. And I will have to say one thing. I know this is going to be changed in a patch because this is something that can be fixed, but the enhanced vibration that was offered on the DualSense for PS5 is atrocious. I hope that that's turned off and you just leave like the shooting vibration or just the basic skating gliding that you would feel, where it would just be like a subtle tap, not all over the screen all the time where it just goes like this. And then it just screams out of your controller, score, and it plays a bunch of music and gets all loud. It's really incredibly distracting. Thankfully, you can just mute the controller speaker, turn some of that stuff lower in the settings on the DualSense inside the PS5 menu. But if you wanted in the tech test to shut off the vibration to this DualSense, you would have to, in turn, shut it off in the internal settings. And that sucks. So the enhanced vibration and everything else is horrible. The Carlin Bay, whoever that's doing some of the stuff out there talking, does sound like the FanDuel girl. I thought that was funny when Mike said that. It does sound like the FanDuel girl, and that's really annoying. And you know what, guys? Again, as someone that's played NHL from NHL 10 to present day, and loving the games from the 360 and PS3, and knowing that the PS4 games were a step back, and NHL 15 was bare bones, didn't have any features. NHL 22 has all the features starting the next gen console, but the gameplay just fucking sucks and the game's not that good. So I kind of wonder how you feel about it again. Facebook.com/GBEventsinger, Twitter @JohnRyanOtt. Are you paying $60 for a PS4 Xbox One version? Are you paying $75 for a next gen version? Are you paying $100 for both versions? Or are you just going to wait for a deep discount or a sale during the holiday season? As always, let me know what you think. This is John Ott signing off for the September 5th show 2021 on a Sunday for Sports Day in the D. Again, this is a reminder that the Demon's Souls review is going to be uploaded here shortly on PS5. I finally got that finished. Hopefully I can get to Returnal at some point this year and finish that off. That might have to be done off disc based without updates. Yeah, I have the game on disc, and I might have to try to do that. The game's hard, and you got to try to beat it in one go. I'm going to try to do my best because it's the only other PS5 game I haven't finished out of all the ones I have. And yes, that's including NBA 2K21 that I may be trading in and using my coupon for 22 and seeing how that goes. So I'll let you know how that goes. But again, Demon's Souls review getting uploaded and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart later this week. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace out. Have a good one, everybody.